I don't know. Do you have any ideas for the sketch this week?
Uh, I don't know, man. Maybe that last one we pitched could work?
Be funny!
Look, we're doing our best. Give us a moment, and we'll get something figured out.
It's been a long season, dude. Just chill. Um, what about the clown thing? The clown thing could work.
Be more funny!
Okay, look, after 40 episodes, it takes a moment to come up with a unique sketch idea. I'm gonna need you to settle down so we can figure something out.
Just calm your tits, dude.
Be funnier!
You know what? That's it. That was one line too freaking far. Alright, it's a long time coming, old man.
Hey, come on now. We're all just friends here. It's just constructive criticism. You gotta learn to take it. Not in the face. Not in the face.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Unqualified Experts. I'm your host, Braden Gardner,
And I'm your corrupt overlord, Shane Dayton.
and today we're going to talk about several of the best board games to play when you know that you're having a large group over. Large group being defined as 6 or more players.
Yup, when you're going past the average 3 to 4, which, let's face it, is kind of the standard for games, sometimes you have a few extra people, and let's face it, if there's 5 of you playing a board game and 1 person watching, that is just awkward.
Absolutely, and a lot of games aren't really well suited to having more than 4 players, and those that are, a lot of them don't scale well as you pass the 4 or 5 player mark. So, making sure that the game is not only capable of handling 6 up, it's also a fun game to
Yeah,
play.
it
with
plays
that many
well
people.
at 6 and up.
Yeah. So, we're going to each talk about 3 games that we've played that fall into this category of excellent games for parties that aren't overdone and overblown like Cards Against Humanity, which still gets trotted out a disgusting amount in the year of our Lord 2021. Like, it's a fun game, but we've done an episode on this already. I've already basically gone over why I cannot play that game anymore.
Rant episode link in the description if you missed that from season 1.
Exactly. So, we're going to start things off with one of my favorite board games of all time, and this is actually a game that's been around for well over a decade. It's coming up on 15 years at this point, and that's the Red Dragon Inn.
Classic.
And there are over 50 different characters to choose from for this game, so you can easily get a big group of people playing. If you do have 7 or more players, the advice that I would suggest following for a game of that size is to limit the range of influence that drinks and card effects have to 2 players on either side of you until you get down to a smaller number again. But for those who haven't played the Red Dragon Inn before, you're basically playing a group of adventurers who are tired from a long day of adventuring, and you're headed to your favorite taverning hole, where gambling, drinking, misunderstandings, pranks, and/or brawls are going to ensue throughout the course of the evening.
And how?
You get thrown out of the Red Dragon Inn when your health and alcohol cross on your game board, or when you run out of gold. So naturally, your goal is to be the last one standing at the end of the night. Now, with over 50 characters to choose from, there are a lot of different playstyles scattered across countless expansions at this point. I mean, heck, Slugfest just finished a Kickstarter not too long ago for the Red Dragon Inn 8, so that's going to bring the total character count up to 54, I think?
It's a lot.
It's a lot. I've reviewed all of them at length on our website, actually. We'll have a link to that post in the description below. But there's definitely a character for every type of playstyle, and oftentimes several.
Yeah. Yeah, you have ones for the gamblers, you have ones for the troublemakers who just want to cause mischief for the whole board. You have the guys who like to punch, you have the guys who like to heal. I mean, there's a little bit of something for everyone in the deck. And they do a really, really nice job where in some card games like this, it's clear that one style is superior every single time, and that's not the case here. You can win by gambling, you can win by holding your liquor, you can win by making life miserable for everyone else. Every
And
style can work.
it's true, and despite this wide array of options, the nice thing is that each character's deck is pretty simple to understand, with maybe only one or two exceptions. And even if you pick a character that's generally considered more powerful, that's far from a guarantee that you're going to win.
Yeah, and sometimes the one or two character seems overpowerful. That just makes you a target for everyone else at the table.
Exactly.
And it's a good balancing act. And the artwork on the cards is just amazing. It is beautiful, it is detailed, it really paints the feeling of being in a chaotic tavern. And sometimes it's just funny.
It's true. It's one that I enjoy trotting out for small and large groups alike. This is one of those games that scales fairly well, as long as you put a range on effects once you start to hit 7 or 8 players.
Yeah, I know for New Year's Eve, when we, non-pandemic years, have a bunch of people over, that thing comes out and stays out for 6 hours because it's so much fun. People don't mind replaying with different decks over and over again. It's a good choice.
Well, that pretty well covers my first pick. What's yours, Shane?
It is one that is a bit more aggressive, and by aggressive, I mean super aggressive, because what other kind is there? And that would be King of Tokyo. The one
Yes.
dice game where Phil makes us miserable, but sometimes we can give it right back. So, King of Tokyo is a really great game, combines dice, cards, and some really cool, easy to learn game mechanics, means the game just kind of goes smoothly. Like, you can play this with relatively younger players who are 12 years old, something like that. It's easy for them to pick up, and it's a lot of fun for adults, too. It's one that, and it's one of the rare ones. It's a lot of fun at 3 players, and it's a lot of fun at 6 or 7 players. Like, it actually does the whole range, where it scales up well. Basically, in King of Tokyo, you are terrorizing that poor, defenseless Japanese city that monsters are just drawn to for some reason.
Go Team Space Penguin.
Yeah, we're getting to that. And your character might be a classic take on Godzilla or King Kong. You might be a tired-looking Cthulhu with one too many days at the office, or the always infuriating space penguin. The dice you roll, they let you attack, gather energy, which can be traded in for cards or special abilities, heal, or get
Victory points.
victory points. Yep, thank you. And if you've watched Phil, nobody rolls 3 threes like that man, and it's infuriating.
It sucks.
The number of games he has robbed from us doing that. And with the city, if you capture the city, you get extra points for capturing it and staying in there. While you attack, everybody at the table takes the hit. But the drawbacks, you can't heal while you're in the city, and every player who attacks hits you. And so while they start pouring on, the player in the city has the ability to cede it when they have been successfully attacked, forcing the other player to go in. It's really easy. Within one round, you have the game figured out. You know the strategy. And the cards that can be bought from the little energy cubes just add all kinds of chaos. You might hit extra, you might heal, you might steal points, you might gain points, you might steal other people's cards, or even get the rare resurrection. It's just one of those games. It combines, in my opinion, the best of card games with the best of dice games.
Yeah, this is a game that also has surprising strategic depth, particularly in 5 or 6 player environments where you can have up to 2 monsters in the city at a given time, as it allows you to work together to knock out everyone else who's hanging out outside the city, or it allows everyone else to bully you, and you get to decide, well, maybe we'll both just leave and put this schmuck in here and wail on them for a while.
And it leads to some hilarious moments where the person doesn't want to hit the monster in the city because he has 1 health left, but the last dice doesn't cooperate, and in the city he goes, because the monster in the city was paying attention.
And if you want to give King of Tokyo a try, if you haven't actually played it, we actually did a how to play rules
Yeah.
video on it way back when that we'll put in the description below for you.
It is a fantastic game. It's easy to break out. And one of the advantages it has compared to many of the games in our list is it's a very easy setup. It does not take a lot of time to get the game up and running.
Well, my next pick is very much the opposite as far as setup. Setup is easily a third of the game, but it's a cooperative setup, and you're not going to notice the time that goes into building the perfect course as you set up for a round of Pitch Car. Pitch Car is a game that is very polarizing among the meeples. Some of us adore it. Others of us...
Not so much. It's not my thing. It's a really interesting gaming experience, but it is going to be hit or miss, whether you love it or hate it or just don't care for it. But it's different.
Exactly. There aren't a lot of good dexterity-based board games out there. Some of them are pretty unbalanced. Others just aren't fun. Pitch Car actually kind of does both very well. So if you manage to track down a copy of this game, the premise behind Pitch Car is you're building a racetrack out of what would appear to be toy track pieces, basically. And you can also set up rubber bumpers in grooves on these track pieces. And everybody kind of works together to help lay out a course. You can also use some of the courses that are designed in the rules, but what's the fun in that? You get access to a huge variety of pieces across the different expansions. You can have ramps, you can have overpasses. It's kind of crazy after a while. And your goal is, after you've got the course created, you're going to take turns flicking little discs around this course. If your piece falls off the course, you go back where you were. And you're trying to complete 1 or 2 laps depending on how ridiculous your course is. And you're trying to complete the course first to be the winner. If you're jerks like us, there are also what are called trash rules, where you can introduce things like collision or penalties for flipping your piece over. We've actually done some ridiculous jumps and other things, which after the fact I found were not quite on the up and up, as the rules state that if you're doing a jump, you can't skip more than 2 pieces of track. But you can do them, and it's exciting to see someone spend 4 or 5 turns setting up to try and get that perfect jump over, and then it just works out. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's an absolute ton of fun. The primary piece of advice I have for you before you play this game, make sure that if you have any wall or floor vents or places that a little wooden disc can end up that you won't be able to retrieve it from, cover all of them. Because I promise you, those discs will find every nook and cranny in the room that you are playing in, and possibly the next room over as well. Like, I got to play this at a gaming convention at my college, and it worked out that we almost lost a piece under the stage. It was ridiculous. But getting an 8-person game in a big open space, the energy that goes into a game of Pitch Car is not to be underestimated.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be pumped from start to finish and really invested in what's going on.
Yeah, and listen, it's not my thing per se, but it's an enjoyable game. There are moments where it's just chaos, because you talked about the joy of watching someone set up for the perfect jump for 4 turns. The other joy is when they deflect it off the opposite wall and end up all the way back at start, which is hilarious and has happened more than once. It's chaos. Like, you said, it's gonna really completely hit it on the head for some people. Some people it won't quite as much, but I found even in the game, it's nothing I would go out of my way to play, but I enjoyed the experience while I was in the middle of it. And there's no denying the energy level that builds up. But I can see why Braden likes it. He has like thin little dexterous fingers. I have big honking meat fists. It doesn't play to my strengths.
I mean, in fairness, it could if we would stop designing the courses like jerks.
Yeah, but then we have to stop being jerks, and you know that's never gonna happen.
Look, I'm just saying.
Okay, well, speaking of jerks, because that actually seems like kind of an appropriate segue for this one. My next one on the list is Joking Hazard.
Oh.
So for what I will call the very, 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 very R-rated entry onto this list, we have Joking Hazard. If you've ever seen the comic Cyanide and Happiness, it's that in a board game. Possibly even more offensive. So, needless to say, we find it amazing. Not for kids.
Yeah, no, this is not a game for children. This is the much more fun version of Cards Against Humanity.
It is. And it's from the creators of Cyanide and Happiness. Uses kind of the same characters, the same sketches, but basically what happens is it's the same flow. If you play Cards Against Humanity, you'll pick up on it pretty quickly. Each player takes turns being the judge. Now, you flip up the first cell of a comic. The player who's the judge puts down the second. And then all the other players need to choose what they think will be the funniest final cell. It gets mixed in, so the judge doesn't know who put what. And he reveals them one by one. In our group, you read the whole comic each time before revealing a cell, because it just makes it funnier each time.
It does.
It's a really high entertainment type game. It's quick. And then the first one to, I don't even know how many points, because it doesn't matter. We're just having fun doing comics. Ends up winning, and then you play again.
I think you played a 5.
Yeah, 5 sounds right. Maybe 6. It's lewd, it's crude, it's wrong, it's dark. It's hilarious, and the more people around the table you have with a dark sense of humor, the crazier some of those strips get. It's a perfect party game. I can't remember a time where we were not clutching our guts or rib cages dying from laughter after this. And, you know, it scales up because you're just making a comic. So whether you have 3 people or 5 people or 7, I actually think it does work more with the higher number of players. Because, yeah, more options, more comics. The game goes on a bit longer. But for a party game, it's hilarious. It goes by fast. There are sight gags. There are visual gags. There's just the plain wrongness of Cyanide and Happiness. And if you're the type of terrible person who loves that comic, like all of us, it's a great, great game.
Agreed. And the nice thing is, it's just so refreshing to have a visual component.
Yep.
Like, you wouldn't think that having that would set it that far apart from games like Cards Against Humanity, but
It really
just
does.
that extra dimension is a night and day difference. Like, if you like Cards Against Humanity, you'll love Joking Hazard.
Yep. And if you like Cyanide and Happiness, you'll love Joking Hazard. And if you're the type of person who thinks all of those things are awful, you should go ahead and skip that one.
Yeah, as I say, if you're not in for that type of humor, this will not be your jam. It's that simple. However, the next game that we're going to talk about is one that has a much broader appeal and is simple enough that you can play it with pretty much anyone of any age, and complex enough that it gets out of hand in a hurry if you're not careful, and that's Hex Hex.
I love this game.
So, premise behind this one, you're a bunch of wizards sitting around a table doing whatever wizards do after a long day, and one of them gets bored and creates a hex in front of one of the other wizards. And you then have to use your hand of cards to play a game of hot potato.
Because who wants to be cursed?
Nobody wants to be cursed. It's just the last thing you need after a long day. And on its face, that's basically what it's about. If someone gets hexed, they lose a voice, and the person who passed the hex to them gains a voice. You each start out with a hand of 5 cards, and you can turn the hex to the left or the right, or send it across the table, or do any number of other things with it. However, you can also, among those other things, really start to turn the hex into a real piece of work. Maybe everyone who touches it loses a voice as it's rotting away. Maybe there's a compulsion on it that forces it to go in a certain direction. Maybe you've doubled it and basically made a second copy of it and passed them both to your neighbors.
Yep.
It gets out of hand super quickly. And ironically, the only card in the deck that I don't think is fun for the long haul, particularly for a big group, is the namesake card of the deck, Hex Hex, which basically whoever has it can play it at any time, and then you drop your hands and put your hands in the drop your cards and put your hands in the air, and the last person to do that loses 3 voice.
Yep.
The deck is small enough that in large games, this will come up frequently.
Yeah. And so if you have it, you're waiting for that timing where some people are not paying attention, and you throw it down and put your hands up. And sometimes that's the only way you get out of a really bad curse that's coming straight your direction.
Yeah. My recommendation, particularly for larger groups, is to either take the card out of the deck outright or to limit it to once a game. And a game consists of everyone being the first player once, and then ends on the first person who was first player going as first player a second time.
See, it doesn't bother me. I think it's funny, but kind of like how the pitch card isn't my thing, I can see exactly why some players would be annoyed if that card came up 2-3 times in a game.
Well, it's very easy to have it come up even more than that in a big group, because the deck's not all that big, and if you're dealing 5 cards to 10 players, you're going to burn through that deck super fast.
And that's fair.
Now, with Hex Hex, I am going to note that there are a few different versions of the game floating out there. There's the original, which is just Hex Hex, comes in a little box. There's Hex Hex Next, which is the sequel game. It has its own Hex Hex card as well, called Hex Hex Next, and it's exactly as annoying as the original. But you can play those 2 decks together, no problem. Or, the more common version that's out there these days is Hex Hex XL, which is the one that I have on the shelf behind me. And that one is kind of a best of those 2 decks. Plus, it includes a couple extra game variants involving the Hex and Sticks, which basically plays like spoons, from my understanding.
I don't think we've ever actually used those.
We have not. We've used the cards because the cards still work well for gameplay. We just ignore the Hex and Sticks text. And there's also the Vexed deck, which is great for party nights because whoever ends up with a Hex draws a card from the Vexed deck, and all players who were Hexed have to undergo the special rules for the Vexed deck for 1 round.
Speaking in loud voices. Speaking in sultry voices. Not speaking at all, or else getting penalized. There's all kinds of crazy stuff in there. Yeah, Hex Hex is one of my favorites when we have a group large enough to break it out. It's one of those where I wish we could play it more. We just usually have 4 people, and it really is, again, one of those few games where at 6 it plays even better.
Yeah, it'll play fine with 4, but it's even better with 5, 6, 7, 8 people, where the Hex can really have some time to go completely hog wild.
Yeah, it's where the chaos works for the game and the fun as opposed to against it. All right, great pick. So for my number 3 choice for the multiplayer games, it is smashing that subscribe button, which can be done as a group. It could be 4 people, 6 people, 20 people. We love you all. And that's just a great way to support us for free and just know that satisfaction that you are helping a small group of professionals just pursue their joy and their dream of just providing amazing content for all you wonderful, wonderful people. And we appreciate every bit of it. And hey, if you want to hit that like button while subscribing, double awesome. We appreciate it.
So the game.
Ah, you want me to do the real one now?
Yeah, if you would, please.
Oh, all right, the real pick. Okay, so this is a favorite of our group too, and actually the favorite game of our next door neighbor, 7 Wonders. A fabulous board game, and also a throwback to one of our better episodes from Season 1, Also in the description, because I love stacking all the work that Braden has to do making the description.
I'll show ye.
In Seven Wonders, you end up drawing a civilization from ancient times. Each one ends up having different starting resources, some of them normal, some of them special. They have different requirements for building their wonders, which give you bonuses like points, a special ability to raid the deck, or a combination of the above. Some of them even give free resources you can use in the future that become very handy in the late game. And you get different bonuses for doing this. There are 3 rounds of cards. The first round has the most basic cards, but you use those to build up resources and buildings for the second round, which are more expensive and more valuable. And then you have the third round where you want every single card that's handed to you.
The third round is honestly the payoff for your setup in the first 2 rounds, because there are such powerful cards in the third age.
Yeah, and it is a point game. You're racing as many points as you can while balancing stuff like having a military built up so your neighbors don't get constant free points off of you as you're penalized for being invaded. You're trying to develop your science game. You are trying to build up your resources and get points, and also get the cards you want to develop more advanced cards later. And of course, unless it's you want to make sure no one is running away with the science game. Because, Archimedes' Death Ray.
Really?
It's a throwback episode, what can I say?
So, yeah, science is famously the most powerful strategy in Seven Wonders. It can be easily swatted down if the table is doing their part to make sure that science cards aren't all making it to the same 1 or 2 people. But science points work exponentially, and you get bonuses for completing sets on top of that. So it's very, very important that you
don't let that avalanche get started.
Yeah.
Because at a certain point you can't stop it anymore.
But there is kind of a give and take to Seven Wonders, because at its core it is a card drafting game. So those of you who are familiar with environments like Magic the Gathering, where you're drafting booster boxes, the draft setup is very similar, as is resource management, like your iron and your bricks and your stone. They basically work like different colors of mana. And you need them to be able to draft certain cards, particularly in the later ages. Because if you don't have the resources, you either have to pay an immediate neighbor to borrow theirs, or you just can't take the card and you might just have to throw it away for 3 coins.
Yeah. And sometimes that's the better option than letting your neighbor get it and complete a really dangerous building, wonder, science. Science cards are very popular to be thrown away for wonders for this reason.
Yeah.
And it's a great game. It's one that I'm okay at. I'm not great, at least not compared to like our neighbor Andy, who pretty much stomps us every time.
Every time.
But it's enjoyable. It's just a fun game. And with 6 people, a lot of times you find yourself getting in a one-on-one match with someone, and I don't care if I lose. I just want 1 more point than that one. Say hi to your sister for me, by the way. Stupid military. Ready every turn.
That was a great night.
But Seven Wonders is one of those where it's a little bit more complex to pick up, but after a full game playthrough, you pick up all of it. So if the first game you feel a little bit lost, don't worry. The first game's the learning game. After that, you realize really quickly what each thing does and how to build, and you'll figure out what your favorite strategy is at that point. And a few honorable mentions I want to bring up before we do the sign out.
Sure.
Mysterium, a very clue-like game that's a lot of fun and has a lot of co-opness to it. Betrayal at House at the Hill, we bring that one up a lot, but it's just such a good game. Trader Mechanic, but such a good game. And Twilight Imperium, which is extremely involved. It's for a very specific group of gamers. Yeah. If you have that dedicated group, give it a shot. If you're a casual gamer, maybe let it go. But if you're a dedicated group of gamers, it's worth a one-time experience.
I can stand to play Twilight Imperium about once every year or two, because at best it's an 8-hour space battle
I used the term experience. I said it was an experience. I did not pick my terms lightly.
Yeah, I think the longest game I saw of it stretched over 5 days. It was ridiculous.
It's a bit much for me. Some groups love it.
And my honorable mention to add on there is we didn't playtest this, which
Oh,
is a
yeah.
great game to bring out for quick, easy fun where everyone gets 2 cards, you do what's on the card, and if you see someone with star cards, those cards are better than other people's cards and you should bully them out of the game.
If you can.
If you can.
Because sometimes they play a star card and says, no, I win. The game's over. It's hilarious. It's chaotic. It's a great choice. So, guys, what did we miss? What are your favorite games when you have not 4, not 3, not 5, but 6 or more players coming to the table? Are there some of these that you absolutely have great stories about? Please leave them in the comments. Other ones you think we should give a serious shot at for our next game night? We definitely want to hear about those as well. So please like, subscribe, give us a nice thumbs up, and talk to us in the comments below. And as always, good gaming!
See you next time!
If you like what you just saw, please support us by hitting that like button and subscribing to our channel for more great gaming content.